Media recognition from Bloomberg, Reuters, recycling trade publications. Patented process for 100% recovery of critical metals, including cobalt, lithium, nickel, manganese, aluminum. American Manganese is focused on recycling lithium-ion batteries for electric vehicles. American Manganese trades on the TSX Venture, AMY, the US, AMYZF, and Frankfurt 2AM. For more information, visit AmericanManganeseInc.com or phone me, Larry Ray, at 778-574-4444.
You're listening to HowStreet.com radio, available online at TalkDigitalNetwork.com. Welcome to HowStreet.com radio, the online source for market opinions. Here is Jim Goddard.
My guest is Chris Vermeulen from the TechnicalTraders.com. Welcome back to the show, Chris.
Hey, Jim. Thanks for having me.
Chris, are we at a point in the markets where it's really hard to tell which way they're going to go right now?
It is. You know, a lot of markets are all kind of testing really critical levels, and the big question is, are these levels going to be broken and we're going to see continuation moves, or are they going to cause reversals? For example, U.S. equities are at resistance, showing the signs that they might be topping. Crude oil, natural gas are down at support, but trying to form bottoming formations. Precious metals, they hit resistance last week. They pulled back to support early this week, and now they're starting to bounce. The dollar is on the verge. It's at support, but on the verge of breaking down. So all of these things everything is pushing an extreme level right now, and that's the big question, is which way are things going to snap and move? And I think the dollar and the U.S. equities market are pretty much going to drive where precious metals go next. And obviously, if the equities markets roll over, money is going to flow back into the safe havens and lift precious metals and miners. And of course, if the dollar does break down, that'll add even more fuel and create that potential breakout in gold to above that 1375 mark, which would then trigger a ton of investors and traders to pile into the precious metals sector. So we're on this verge of potentially huge moves, and we just kind of have to sit here in limbo and wait to see which way things are going to carry out over the next week or two.
The Fed talking about perhaps dropping interest rates later this year. What influence has that had?
Well, I don't look into it too much because you never really know what they're going to do. It's always still a crapshoot when the Fed comes out and they make their decision based on whatever they use for analysis. But I mean, if they lower rates, we're most likely going to see metals start to move up. We're probably going to see the equities markets start to roll over, and that could spark a really big move and a tipping point for potentially the equities market and metals to really kickstart some new trends where you never know. That could be what could be blamed for the next bear market kind of trigger, or maybe it'll be the tariffs. You never really know, but there's definitely going to be some waiting going in. People are waiting to see what the Fed is going to do, and it's always going to be a surprise, and the markets always move fast right after. The question is what happens 2 or 3 days after, when more or less all the emotional traders, news-based traders, jump into the markets and create some huge intraday whipsaw in price for all asset classes.
Are people in Europe still putting money into the U.S. market because you can't make any money in Europe?
I feel like it. I feel like the U.S. equities and the dollar are seen as the safe haven markets. You look at all the other currencies going back a year change from now, they've all been heading lower. The U.S. dollar is the only one bucking the trend going higher. U.S. equities are holding up very well compared to some other markets, and it just seems like it's the safe haven play for everyone. But eventually, when the U.S. equities markets roll over, if everyone is focusing on the U.S. equities and that's where their money is, when it does finally reach a level where people are panicking and they want to get out of equities, that could create a massive move in the safe havens, potentially bonds and precious metals and miners, because it won't be everyone spread out over all the different indexes. It seems everybody's kind of been piling into the U.S. and the dollar, And I think it could create a very strong potential upside move for the safe havens when the U.S. equities markets hit some critical levels showing that they're breaking down.
We'll have more with Chris Vermeulen right after this.
Grand Portage Resources' Herbert Gold Project in southeast Alaska highlights increased gold resource, indicated and inferred, of 860,000 ounces, in excess of 10 grams per ton gold. Expansion drilling is planned on the Herbert Gold property for the summer of 2019. Grand Portage Resources trading symbols are GPG on the TSX Venture, GPTRF on the OTCQB, and GPB on Frankfurt. For more information, please visit our website, grandportage.com.
Cypress Development Corp. is developing a world-class lithium resource in the heart of Clayton Valley, Nevada. The size of the resource makes the Clayton Valley project a premier asset with the potential to impact the future of lithium supply. Cypress Development Corp. trades on the TSX Venture Exchange, symbol CYP, the OTCQB, symbol CYDVF, and on Frankfurt, symbol C1Z1. For more information, please visit our website, cypressdevelopmentcorp.com.
Welcome back. We're speaking with Chris Vermeulen. Chris, what's the outlook for crude?
Yeah, crude oil. I like crude oil a lot. It's made a lot of several measured moves to the downside over the last month and a half, and it's still chopping around, trying to find a bottom here. I feel as though it wants to get down to that $50, maybe $49 per barrel mark. I think it's still going to trade in a fairly big range between around 50 and 55. I think it's going to try and carve out a bottom. We might make some minor new lows down to that 50, maybe dip into the 49 area mark over the next 2 weeks. But I feel as though it is near the end of its pullback, and we're seeing increased volatility, which usually means that's the bulls and the bears starting to struggle. People are giving up. Big money is kind of jumping in, which is how you get big up and down days. And so I like crude oil. I think it still has some work to do. I think it still has another potential week or two worth of price action to kind of work itself out before that downward momentum is negated and turned into a base and shows some potential upside. But I like crude oil. I think looking forward, it'll be back at potentially $58 per barrel, $57.50, somewhere in there a few weeks from now.
Anything happening with natural gas?
Well, natural gas, not so much. It broke down through some pretty critical support level around the 255 mark back in April, and really it's kind of really been underperforming. It's been making a series of lower highs, lower lows. It's kind of in the same boat as crude at this point, where it's oversold. It is now trying to put a bottom in, a bounce. I think natural gas is more of a bounce play, where maybe it'll drift back up to the 250 mark, but I think it's going to get sold back into. My analysis is pointing to potentially $2 natural gas later this summer, which I think will be a screaming opportunity to get long. September's generally a very strong month for natural gas. So I like this bearish bias, this downward trend in natural gas. I hope it continues to flounder and move down to that $2 level, because when September comes, I think it'll be a great time to get into some long natural gas plays.
We'll have more with Chris Vermeulen right after the break.
Hi, I'm Douglas Mason, President and CEO of Rainy Mountain Royalty Corp., RMO, on the TSX Venture Exchange. Rainy Mountain Royalty Corp. is a Canadian-based mineral exploration project generator. The company currently holds multiple property interests in Ontario with joint venture partners and is seeking further joint venture partners for other drill-ready properties in our portfolio. For more information, please visit our website at rmroyalty.com or call me at 604-922-2030.
Don't miss out. Stay informed. Receive the HowStreet.com weekly recap with thought-provoking podcasts, radio, and articles delivered to your inbox. Sign up for the HowStreet.com weekly recap on our homepage at HowStreet.com.
Welcome back. We're speaking with Chris Vermeulen. Chris, anything happening with Bitcoin right now?
Yeah, well, Bitcoin to me is actually looking a little bearish. It's had a really nice run. It's gone from, almost $3 or $3,000, all the way up to $9,200, almost almost within a year, within this year. But in the last 2 or 3 weeks, it has shown some pretty heavy volume selling going on in the futures market. It's showing a very clean-looking bear flag that can also be seen from May to now as a head and shoulders topping formation. And to me, this push up into this 81, 8200 mark looks like a great opportunity to actually be short Bitcoin or to short the ETF for it, the trust fund GBTC, because I do feel as though the downside move here is around $7,000 per Bitcoin. So it looks very bearish from a swing trader's standpoint looking forward, 2-3 weeks from now.
Any thoughts on agricultural commodities?
I don't really follow those too much. I mean, commodities in general have been somewhat out of favor. They're trying to put in a bottom, but I mean, they've had a nice pop in the last 2 or 3 weeks, but that's about it at this point. They're not really making new highs. They are still within downtrends. They're trying to build a base. So I don't see anything too exciting in agricultural commodities right now. I think there's still some more work to be done, but they are showing some signs of life the last 3 to 4 weeks, and we'll see if that can get some traction and we see some follow-through buying.
Is there any action in platinum and palladium?
Yeah, palladium's been holding up really well. It's trying to it has formed a bottom around that 13 mark, and it's starting to move up. I like the way that palladium has been just kind of carving out that bottom. It's had a really nice pop the last week and a half. I think we need to break 1450 an ounce on palladium for it to really start a new uptrend, because that's a significant pivot high from April. And if we look at platinum, well, platinum is down at long-term support. It's still trying to carve out a bottom, much like silver is. Silver and platinum kind of out of favor still and not showing a lot of signs of life yet, but I think they will play catch-up. I like silver more than I do platinum, but both of them are in a similar boat where they've been under a ton of pressure, just fading lower and lower and lower. They had a quick couple-day bounce last week, and then they sold right back down again. So they're just not seen by traders or investors as something people really want to get into just yet. I usually find silver and platinum to kind of be a later stages. People move from the expensive gold when it starts to move up. They want to buy precious metals that's cheaper, and they go into silver, and very similar to platinum. It's a bit less, and people seem to move into those to try and get more value or to buy more ounces with the same amount of dollars.
Chris, how would you sum up the markets then?
Well, I would look at the markets right now as you really need to just kind of hang tight for another week or so. I think the markets are on the verge of having some significant moves, and there's a lot of mixed signals right now. The big question is, which way is the dollar going to move? Is it going to bounce and get back in its rising channel, or is it going to roll over and sell off and spark a rally in precious metals? That's really the big kind of a move there. And the equities market looks a little toppy. It's at resistance. It really isn't giving a sign yet if it's going to roll over and sell back down or rally. So I'm in neutral mode right now. We only hold some gold and gold miners. We trimmed off some profits last week near the highs, and we're waiting to see if the metals market's going to continue and break higher before we put on any new positions in the indexes or commodities.
Chris, thank you so much for chatting with us.
Hey, thanks, Jim. Always a pleasure.
My guest has been Chris Vermeulen from the technicaltraders.com. If you have any questions for Chris or any of our other guests, you can send them to info@howstreet.com. Find us on Twitter @HowStreet, our YouTube channel, Talk Digital Network. I'm Jim Goddard. Thank you for listening.
Comments made on HowStreet.com radio are an expression of opinion only and should not be construed in any matter whatsoever as recommendations to buy or sell any financial instrument at any time. Available online at TalkDigitalNetwork.com. HowStreet.com radio is a production of HowStreet Media Incorporated.